So in number 12, we are given the graph of f double prime of x, and we are asked to find f prime of x and f of x. So let's look at the information given to us. It states, the graph of the function has two relative minima and one relative maximum. So this information will be applying to f of x. So let's keep that in mind for later. Alright, looking back at the graph of f prime of x, f double prime of x, we realize that unlike usual, we are given the derivative and not the original function. So what we have to do is to work backwards. So we can see in the graph of f double prime of x, there are areas from where the graph goes from above the x-axis to below the x-axis to back above the x-axis. Now, what does that mean? It means that for f prime of x, when f double prime of x is above the x-axis, f prime of x is increasing. And when f double prime of x is below the x-axis, f prime of x is decreasing. So let's mark the points on the graph of f prime of x from where it changes from increasing to decreasing and decreasing to increasing.
Excellent. And now, because we know where the graph is increasing and decreasing based on the graph of f double prime of x, let us sketch the graph. Beautiful. Now, let's draw an extension for the graph of f prime of x in order to make the finding of f of x a little easier. Excellent. So now that we have f prime of x, we can move on into finding f of x. We can use the same techniques we used earlier using f double prime of x to find f prime of x in order to find f of x. So let's look at the areas of where f prime of x is above the x-axis and below the x-axis. So we know that when f prime of x is above the x-axis, f of x is increasing, and when f prime of x is below the x-axis, f of x is decreasing. So we can see that there are certain points where in f prime of x, it goes from above the x-axis to below the x-axis. So why don't we mark these points? So we can see that these are the areas where the graph of f of x will change from decreasing to increasing. So because we know how f of x will look based on f prime of x, why don't we start graphing? What a beautiful graph. Notice that our graph satisfies the criteria as stated in the beginning of the problem, where it states it must have two relative minima and one relative maximum. As you can see, this is the reason we extended the graph of f prime of x in order so we could graph the graph of f of x easily while satisfying the criteria. And now that we've found the graphs of f prime of x and f of x, let's make our graphs a little more neat. Excellent.